Good evening and welcome along to Business Today. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on Sign Language. And this is your daily report. Now we dig deeper into what we have for you tonight. We kickstart it off with more of what is coming in from the details here. Just a quick one.
Ay ngapain?
Take a off sound. Good evening and welcome along to Business Today. Apologies for that bit of technicalities that happened earlier. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on Sign Language. We kick-started off with the resource mobilization for disaster preparedness. In order to prevent disasters that take the lives of innocent people, the government has decided to relocate residents of mountainous areas. The Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda, Right Honorable Rukia Isanga Nakadama, who is the second deputy, has met with stakeholders and United Nations to discuss ways to mitigate the climate change through resource mobilization of funds. Samuel Kirimunda has more information.
Recently, floods in Mbale claimed many lives of Ugandans as a result of climate change. Right Honorable Rukia Isanga Nakadama has told the people that they have developed good technologies to know before the situation worsens, allowing them to be prepared.
To construct these bridges early enough, because sometimes they come and they are overpowered by the disasters. But these are the things that we are putting in place before it is late. Disasters are part of us. We have to get prepared. We have to know how to talk to our people, to tell them maybe to leave such places. We are coming up with a technology which can foresee the time when the disasters will happen so that our people are prepared and, of course, get ready for it. We have to have money, like we are saying, in places where we know that disasters are going to happen. There is no need why we should not prepare money to have bridges which are permanent, real permanent, that they will not be broken by these disasters.
Additionally, Right Honorable Nakadama exposes several regions that require additional attention when it comes to rain and where the government would relocate them to new locations.
There is an area which is like the rock wants to break. So those are the areas where we have to go. We prepare our people, we remove them when it is early enough.
In a conversation with Honorable Justin Kasule Lumumba, Minister for General Duties in the Prime Minister's office, Smart24 TV learned that the government has developed strategies for those at risk areas and that funders have concerted to incorporate the risk plan for disaster preparedness.
Different fundraising strategies in different areas, and we shall have those discussions going on, and as discussions go on, we shall be registering our performance, evaluating our performance, and be able to see how to achieve. For these people, when government facilitates them to get off those places, when government works together with the UN agencies and private sectors to help them get off those places by giving them resources to leave those areas, the mountainous areas, that land reverts back to government.
Honorable Esther Anyakon, the State Minister for Disaster Preparedness, also discussed the plans that will be carried out over the next 10 years with the help of the ideas from the United Nations.
Medium term, and also we have long term. So when you look at the plan, it has to cover all the three. And We have come up with the idea of resettling or giving cash directly to the most affected people to be able to relocate. That's why you see it is going now to almost around 10 trillion.
The cabinet recently gave its proposal to the disaster preparedness risk management strategy. The cabinet recently approved the disaster preparedness plan, where His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, donated $50 million to mitigate the impact of climate changes and management risks. In today's conference that held at the Office of the Prime Minister, which was chaired by the third Deputy Prime Minister, Right Honorable Rukia Isangana Kadam, discussed how they are going to solve the situation is and to mobilize resources. Samuel Kirimunda, reporting for Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now thanks Samuel Kirimunda for that particular one. Now, the Lotus building developers have been instructed by the Parliamentary Infrastructure Committee to abide by the Kampala City Council authorities' order to vacate the structure in order to prevent a catastrophe because the construction is at risk. Samali Hanifa with the report. All right, away from that particular one, now we move to the other report regarding advocating for the deaf. The civil society has urged the government to guarantee that sign language is made an official language in Uganda as it marks the 17th anniversary of the Worldwide Week for the Deaf. Building inclusive communities for all through sign language is the focus of this year's commemoration in order to prevent prejudice, enable societal inclusion and further Agenda 2030 and Uganda's vision of 2040.
The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities recognizes the use of sign languages and requires state parties to support sign language learning. However, those with this hearing impairment still face the challenge of failure to access services, especially in health facilities.
Mother could go to hospital and meet other people, pay money. I got the nurse. Finds a nurse there in the hospital. There's a problem of English. And there's friends who are nearby. So he finds that the friends who are neighbors will support sometimes to interpret. Because so there she has a problem. His father to communicate to the nurses. Because sign language is a challenge still, even to the parents, their parents, they have problems. So they can't communicate. So it becomes a problem. So sometimes their treatment delays. Problems with sign language. So these people cannot be helped by nurses. Meaning, out there, nurses need more training in sign language.
That it is still not cleared in communities that some people are still negative about the deafness, thinking that they cannot go to school.
Minister of State for Gender, Labour and Social Development and Disability Affairs, Honorable Helena Samo, earlier this month called upon different stakeholders to support facilities with sign language interpreters.
Sign language is the critical prerequisite to reach the full participation of the people in their communities and ensure realization of human rights. It calls upon relevant stakeholders to provide support and disseminate information on early acquisition of Uganda Sign Language and provide inclusive, quality, bilingual education in addition. It calls for support to professional and trained Uganda Sign Language interpreters to enable the participation of deaf people.
Communication barriers, inaccessible information, and lack of sign language interpreters for deaf people in schools, hospitals, and other service centers are among the major issues for deaf people. This has caused civil society organizations led by the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights, ISER, to call upon the government to ensure that sign language is made official in the country.
It's a language just like any other language. It's just like English, Luganda, Lunyachitara, just like your language, right? That's a language for deaf people. And it's the mode of communication in which we are able to express ourselves.
Needs to include the sign language interpreters within their system, because Ministry of Education cannot post sign language interpreters to a facility if it's not done through the Public Services Commission. We've addressed this before courts of law, but even from our engagements with the Ministry of Health, they are constrained in that particular aspect. So it's now that we have entered the program-based budgeting, it should be a priority to see that we include sign language interpreters in all our public services.
Government has committed to the delivery of Uganda Sign Language training in secondary schools, but the modalities for its delivery are unknown. Deaf children are unknowingly dropping out from school. According to the recent results of the 2020 primary leaving examinations, out of 218 deaf candidates, none was in the first division, only 23 were in the second division, 38 were in the third division, and 45 acquired the fourth division. 51% of the deaf candidates were ungraded.
All right, now we return to the Vacate the Building report, where the Lotus Building developers have been instructed by the Parliamentary Infrastructure Committee to abide by the Kampala City Council Authority's order to vacate the structure in order to prevent a catastrophe because the construction is at risk. Samali Hanifa has more of this report.
Members of Parliament who are dissatisfied with the developers of Lotus have urged the authorities to present a thorough report on the mentioned building to encourage the tenants to leave before a country has another calamity in which a building collapses in the middle of town, claiming many lives.
One is by the contractor. By the time you proposed to use additives, what is the performance of the additives? Which additives were those? How do they perform with concrete? And how were they casted?
It serves as an additional voice to the order that was made that these people go and get out of that building. So that is final. They defied it, and defying the law is wrong. Only that KCCA is supposed, having defied the order, KCCA was supposed to issue summons, which it has not done.
The MPs argue that while it is unfortunate that the authorities' orders are disobeyed, yet it is for Ugandans' interest, because in the event of a catastrophe, the Infrastructure Committee would come under scrutiny.
Parliament went and requested that they should evacuate the people. Unfortunately, up to now, they haven't. So it's, this Parliament, this committee has powers equal to High Court. So it's upon this committee to give direction towards that. And that's what we're going to do. If we don't do it, then I'll take it to the full Parliament before our people die, because it will be like committing suicide.
The Vice Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, in an interview with press, Honorable Kasolo Robert, stated that the committee's decision to order the tenants of the compromised property to leave, while an inquiry is conducted to determine who is responsible for the building setup, will not be reversed.
But of course, what is evident is that the building is a threat to human life, and that a lot is coming up. There were errors that were committed. So Ugandans, the committee is doing its work, and we will be reporting to all Ugandans and to inform them the magnitude of the matter and how this issue has to be solved. But as we speak now, the committee has instructed the developer who had refused to honor the vacation order from KCCA to make sure they vacate the building, because the building is already condemned.
Samla Hanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now away from that, we speak matters pay-as-you-go tractor financing model. The young entrepreneurs received tractors from the Minister of State for Agriculture, Honorable Bwino Chakulaga, who also introduced the pay-as-you-go tractor financing scheme in Uganda. This project's goal is to increase smallholder farmers' on-farm productivity so that they may achieve food security and respectable income through the distribution of 50,000 tractors across the African continent over a 10-year period. We have more of this report.
The pay-as-you-go tractor financing strategy is geared towards young people who might find it challenging to either buy a tractor and its attachment or even hire one from the open market. The beneficiaries will have access to these machines thanks to partnership between Heifer International and Hello Tractor, an online financing platform. The tractors will be provided to potential owners under the hire purchase conditions, with Heifer International financing the purchase, and the money can be repaid from the owners over a certain time periods.
I particularly thank them because what they are trying to do is well aligned to our mandate as a ministry, and it's well aligned to the planning frameworks of the country. Vision 2040, the third National Development Plan, and the other planning frameworks.
Very delighted to be here today, as this is our official launch of the PG project in Uganda. We are handing over 11 tractors to 11 renters who are going to have also harrows and plows. And we are delighted because they're going to be able to service our smallholder farmers, and we're going to expand our program all over Uganda with this. Thank you.
The goal of this program, according to William Matovu, the country director for Heifer International in Uganda, is to increase agricultural production for smallholder farmers so they may achieve both economic and food security. To that end, 50,000 tractors will be distributed throughout Africa over the course of 10 years.
Sure that we can support close to about 400,000 families in Uganda to meaningfully achieve a decent income as it has been defined by government of Uganda. And globally, we're looking at close to about 10 million farmers. And when we talk about those numbers, we want to ensure that we can meaningfully transform them. We go to those families, and indeed we can testify that we have moved them from where they are, and we've enabled them to really achieve what we call a living income.
Serviced by the tractor owners, and this ensures that the smallholder farmer who would only dream about having their own farms, mechanized, will now have access to tractors, and they're able to increase their yields, expand even the land that they're using for cultivation. And this is the impact that we're seeing. Our smallholder farmers are doing more, they're earning more, and they can invest their income into better things like more food for their homes, education for their children, and even improving their livelihoods. And this is what Heifer is happy to invest in.
All of these projects, according to Otuke County Member of Parliament Paul Omara, are being carried out by private organizations. The government should therefore consider a method for distributing tractors to both areas of the nation by implementing budget proposals from the Ministry of Agriculture.
We want to have a game changer in the country. We should abandon the use of rudimentary tools and go onto the tractors. And one of the things we noted is that we need to clear the grounds also, remove the stumps, remove the trees, so that we can have efficiency when we begin to use tractors. So we are looking forward into the next budget process to see that the Ministry of Agriculture come up with a budget proposal that deals with the tractor usage and distribution in the country.
Limited access to financing, frequently brought on by lack of required collateral, is one of the biggest issues that farmers, particularly women and youth, must deal with. Heifer International is utilizing technology to encourage disruptive technologies that will impact agricultural food system to assure food security and generate jobs at various nodes of the value chain in order to address these and other concerns. One such innovation is Page service created by Hello Tractor, an edtech company that links tractor owners to farmers and vice versa via a mobile application for tractor sharing. According to the records from Haifa International Uganda, some of the smallholder farmers that adopted this tractor financing model have recorded high agricultural production. However, they are being disrupted by problems associated with climate change. Betson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now, despite the fact that the tax incentives ranking among the very list of investors is worrying, some companies are enjoying tax holidays in this country, yet the cost of these tax incentives must be paid for by everybody. Today, we explore the relevance of tax holidays to Uganda's economy in a report where Bronia Katosime brings it all.
Exporters that ship at least 80% of their produce as finished items are eligible for a 10-year tax vacation, subject to a few requirements. The Investment Code Act uses the Uganda Investment Authority to seek investor credentials. Tax incentives are exceptions, credits, or deductions that lower a company's tax obligation to the government in return for making specific decisions. They are a means of enticing entrepreneurs, corporations, and everyday citizens to invest in projects that will benefit the country.
The incentives, there were good incentives for investors to attract both local or domestic investors and foreign investors. Actually, the incentives are the same, although Ugandans often believe that they are different for foreigners, but it's not true. We have only one set of incentives that are given to investors. So we have a tax holiday for certain sectors and for like value addition, like investing up country. If you're up country, we really want to attract people not to all come into Kampala. So there were some incentives for investing up country. You can get a tax holiday if you are value adding manufacturer, if you are in ICT. So there are some sectors that government prioritizes, and the attractive incentives in those sectors. We have
the investment incentive requirements that these investors are supposed to be getting. Over the years, we have also been wondering who are these investors that qualify for the incentives. Now, the new act streamlines that process, the requirements. We know that they have established a minimum investment requirement, capital requirement, for one to qualify for these incentives if you're a foreigner. And the way they define a foreigner investor is that you're a person who is coming from a non-East African country state, or a company that is incorporated by the laws outside the East African community. So if you're a foreign investor, probably you require a minimum capital investment requirement of about 10 million US dollars. And if you're a local investor, then you're also required to have that minimum investment requirement of 300,000 US dollars. That is equivalent to about $1 billion Ugandan shilling.
Stakeholders highlight how investors can have access to tax breaks based on specific industries, what should be included in the Investment Act, and the obstacles that come with the tax holiday incentives.
A big investor investing millions and millions of dollars, and you are going to provide either many jobs or services, or you're going to increase Uganda's exports, then they're willing to give you a 10-year tax holiday if you are really going to benefit the nation. Yeah. So You have a tax holiday, yes, you're not paying taxes, but you're creating jobs. You are value adding, you are, manufacturing, you are exporting. We really need to export. We need to earn dollars. So in that way, the government is able to look at what you do and give you a tax holiday if they feel you deserve one. It can be up to 10 years, yes, that's a maximum, but it could be less. Yeah.
You know what? This trade agreement, this trade policy, this investment agreement is not working. Like today, we are back in Parliament saying we need to revise our investment code because our investment code has no human rights provisions. Yet when you see investment ventures, that's the source of human rights abuses, people being displaced at work, the pay, the working conditions, all those ones. So let us put them in our investment code, so that's how we have been working, but also that's how we have survived, because we also link the people to the policies, but we also link the national level, the regional level, the continental level, and the global level.
I think a strong policy recommendation needs to be taken and repeal this corporate income tax holiday of 10 years. Scrap it where necessary. Because also what research shows us is that incentives over the world, especially tax subsidies, have failed to work. They do not make businesses flourish. And what also comes out strongly is that what attracts businesses actually to these countries, what attracts investors are not those subsidies, but there are other genuine incentives that usually trigger these investors to come and invest in a country. That could be the political climate. It dictates a lot the nature of infrastructure or the quality of infrastructure that we have. It could also be the type of labor force that you have. Those are things that literally attract investors to come. Generally, the investment climate, which is way broader than those incentives. But as a country, our investment climate is still harsh. And in economic policy, we always talk about these priors. There are always prior actions that you need to put in place before you actually implement a policy.
For many years, the government has been offering tax holidays to both local and foreign investors. These tax incentives help our investors develop our own country through their businesses. Stakeholders advise the Ugandan investors to have access to these tax incentives, for they are very helpful. They also urge the government to work on the other means that attract investors in our country. For instance, improving on infrastructure and working on political stability. Bronya Katsime, Business Today, Smart 24 TV, driving business.
And we continue to drive your business immediately after the break, so stick around as Business Today does continue.